Do you have a DonorsChoose.org project that needs funding? Today's sponsor is Advancement Courses, and they are donating 10% of their sales until September 28th to DonorsChoose.org projects. And if you're needing professional development for yourself, you get 20% off their 200-plus online PD courses using the special code just for 10-minute teacher listeners. So stay tuned at the end of the show. Today, we're going to talk about 5 steps to teach digital citizenship and the 9 key P's of digital citizenship in episode 365. The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today. Today on episode 365, we're going to talk about the 5 steps to teach digital citizenship. This is based on the 9 key P's of digital citizenship. For those of you that have read my book, Reinventing Writing, you will be familiar with these 9 key P's. But for those of you who are not, I'm going to briefly cover those. First is passwords. Do students know how to create an unhackable password? Even more so, do they know how to remember those passwords? And do they understand that we have different passwords for different websites? Sometimes I'll even teach students about password managers and ways to remember passwords. But this is definitely one of the first things that students need to know. Now, I will say that on these show notes, I will be linking some of my free digital citizenship bell ringers, and I'll also link to a webinar I did a while back for NetRef that expands on this topic. Now, the second key P of digital citizenship is privacy. The students understand what should be kept private and how to check their privacy settings every so often in their apps. For example, in Snapchat, do they know how to turn on and off their location? Do they understand what kind of private information that they are sharing? That's closely related to number 3, which is personal information. Personal information is things that could identify you. So, for example, if you start publicly saying that you get out of cheerleading practice every day at 4:15 and you hate having to wait in front of the school for 30 minutes for your mom, you have just given out personal information that you really don't want to be out there. So, do students understand these 2 different types of information? Now, number 4, photography is actually related to this because many photos include geolocation or GPS coordinates. So, for example, if a student talks about their new beautiful paint in their bedroom and takes a photo and posts it up and hasn't turned off their location, they have just given the latitude and longitude for their bedroom. So this is definitely not a good idea. And so when we talk about photography, we go in student phones and we start discussing information about those geolocation coordinates. Number 5 is property. Now, there's 2 sides to property. First of all, do students understand how to license their own work that they create? Typically, I'll teach students using Creative Commons. But also, do students understand the property of others? So many students don't understand why they can't use popular music in all of their videos. Now, certainly there are some exceptions on YouTube. For example, now if you pick a popular song and you upload it to the student account in YouTube, and that producer of that song has enabled monetization, then an ad will be shown on that student video, and the money will go to the original recording artist and the writer and the producer and all the folks who need to get their money. Now, this is perfectly fine if your school is okay with advertisements, but if they're not, then you're kind of treading on an area that you don't want to go. And certainly, a lot of teachers do let students claim fair use for use of a lot of materials on the web. However, if you claim fair use, students need to know what fair use is and why they were allowed to use it in school. Because the moment they go work for someone and try to claim it, it's no longer fair use because they're not in an educational setting. So students do need to understand both aspects of property, both asking for permission and licensing their own work. Of course, this is related to number 6, which is permission. Students do need to know how to do that. We just covered that. Number 7 is protection. The students know how to protect themselves. So, for example, if they get an email that says, your account has been compromised. For example, I've seen some recent spoofs pretending to be teachers at a school being sent to parents at that school, and it wasn't even from our domain name. Those who did not understand were communicating with the teacher, and the teacher didn't know what they were talking about. Understanding spoofing, understanding phishing with a PH, and farming with a PH, and how to protect themselves from identity theft. These things are so very important and certainly related to some of the other 9 key Ps we've already discussed, like passwords, privacy, and personal information. Then we have for number 8 is professionalism. Now, I teach my students that they are professional students. They need to know that their academic work is their professional life. They have a social life and a professional life. But when you are a professional, you don't use text speak, you don't use IM speak, you spell things out, you use punctuation, and you capitalize. So that's just a small piece of being a professional student, as well as appropriate conversations that you would have on websites, in Power School Learning, wherever it is that we're learning for that classroom. Finally, the 9th P is permanence. It is completely an illusion that information can be deleted off the internet. Once you have shared something, it's out there. You can pretty much count on the fact that it will be in the Wayback Machine or in Google's cache or on someone else's computer pretty much forever. You can't count on that going away. So you need to really think about what information you shared. In fact, I reached out to a former student of mine who had forgotten this. She shared on Facebook publicly how much she hated her job. And I had to message her privately, even though she's in her 20s, and just ask her if she was okay and ask her if she really meant to say that. You know, it's her decision. She's an adult. She can do that if she wants to. But if you want to keep a job, you shouldn't be talking about it on social media if you hate that job. Nobody is going to want to hire someone who publicly disses their current employer. That's just not something you want to do. So how do we teach these 9 key Ps? Well, first of all, I like to introduce the topic with some sort of bell ringer or some sort of activity where the students have to explore and learn about their topic. Second, I like to build on that knowledge by having a follow-up truth or fiction bell ringer. So, for example, I'll have a blurb of information. It'll say, your aunt shared this information on Facebook. Should you reshare or not? And then they have 5 minutes to decide. Now, as I give these truth or fiction bell ringers, I will shorten the time that they have to make their decision and sort of make a game out of it. Third, you want to engage the students in this process. I have the students have a truth or fiction game where they're trying to trick each other with false information. And you could say, well, why would you do that? I want students to understand how easy it is to create a fake tweet or a fake Facebook page or all that sort of thing. And while I don't have them doing fake tweets, there are tools that allow you to create a fake tweet. And there are so many websites that are not valid sources of information. In fact, there was a recent thing going through Facebook talking about how people with negative blood types are actually part of an alien species. And I was shocked because this was debunked back in 2017 and people are still sharing it. People are still sharing information on children who have been found for 10 years and aren't even children anymore. So we really have a truth problem, those of us who use social media, and we want our students to know how to verify information. Then, fourth of all, I like to have a jigsaw project where students study each of the 9 aspects. So we'll split into 9 teams and students will study the 9 different aspects of digital citizenship and talk about it with each other and how to be safe. Then finally, we want students to be protected. I teach my 5 steps for online safety. Stop, screenshot, block, tell, and share. First of all, you stop what you're doing and you think about it and think about what has just happened if something negative happens. The second thing is you want to screenshot it. You have to do this before you block because sometimes when you block someone on a social network, all of that information goes away and you lose your ability to report it, which is very unfortunate. Then you want to block someone and then you want to tell the appropriate people. Now, I have an agreement with my students that they can screenshot something, print it out, put it on my desk, and I don't have to know where it came from. And that's perfectly fine and it's helped me intervene in the past in some situations that I needed to know about. So telling is very important. And finally, after we have learned something about online safety, I believe we have a responsibility to share it with others because we want others to be safe as well. And face it, all of this technology is changing so rapidly. If you want to know more about the 9 key P's of digital citizenship or these 5 topics, there's a couple places that you can go. I'll link to the article I wrote for Edutopia on this topic. I'll link to the webinar I did for NetRef. I'll also link to Reinventing Writing, the book I wrote that includes a chapter on how I teach digital citizenship. And not only that, but how do you build community in an online platform. These are all very important topics, and I hope that all of you teachers out there have selected a digital citizenship safety model of some kinds. There certainly are other models besides the one I just invented for my own use in my classroom. There's great things out there from Common Sense Media. NetRef has some good information. Lots of different companies have great information out there. Mike Ribble has a lovely digital citizenship model that you might also want to check out. But whatever your case, make sure you have a model of digital citizenship in that all of your teachers are on the same page and using the same language so we can keep those kids safe. From now until September 28th, Advancement Courses, an online provider of professional development for K-12 teachers, is donating 10% of their sales to funding DonorsChoose.org projects. Go to advancementcourses.com/give to submit your project today. And if you're in need of professional development, the 10-Minute Teacher listeners like you can get 20% off any online courses with the code COOL20. That's COOL 20. With this coupon, a 3 grad credit course for continuing education, salary advancement, or recertification is only $359. So go to advancementcourses.com/coolcat to learn more and make sure you use that coupon code COOL20. Never stop learning.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.